Yo, welcome to the very first episode of the Wood Dragon Alchemy Radio. Of course, I'm Jake, your host. Let me start off by saying how grateful I am that you're even here, listening to my words. I only hope that they resonate and that they help. Because this space, this conversation, it's for the seekers, the curious, the feelers of emotions and energies, the experimenters of life and the free thinkers. For the ones who've lived enough life to realize that healing is not linear, nor does it show up in a straight and pretty paved path that you can casually walk. And transformation, well, for that matter, it's not just a mindset. It's a full body, full spirit, full surrender kind of thing. It's going all in on yourself no matter the odds. Now, without further ado, let's begin. And I want to start by saying this. Renewal, rebranding, rebirth, these are terms and words we all toss around like they're simple, right? Yet, real renewal, it's not just about beginning again. It's about aligning. It's about transforming what already is and what already exists. Taking what's been broken, burned out, or buried deeply, and turning it into gold. Here in this space, we talk about the science and the soul of wellness, the physics of the energy and the metaphysics of being human, the brain and the mind, how they're the same and yet separate. Perhaps even occasionally we will discuss financial health. Because here's the thing, renewal doesn't happen by accident. It is alchemical in nature. And that, my fellow listeners, is exactly where we find the magic. So, let me tell you the real story behind why this show even exists. Because, I'll be honest, it's been a whole process for me. There for a minute, I was running multiple podcasts. 4 to be exact. I had The Inner Alchemist, Wood Dragon Wellness, Assets in Alchemy, and the Nexus 111. Great. Each one was a piece of me. But that was the issue. They only all showed pieces, fragments of me. And, I gotta say, after a lot of reflection, I realized that I was doing the most to quite literally only share fragments of myself. That felt unfair to me and to my followers and listeners. In fact, I felt spread thin, and while my intentions were always good and based in my heart, my energy was divided and scattered. See, I knew I couldn't sustain 4 separate shows and still feel present, creative, and aligned for the shows or even my own life. So, I made some hard decisions, and I let some of the shows go, and I combined some of the shows. Specifically, it's when I decided merging The Inner Alchemist with Wood Dragon Wellness was the next move. And that's how Wood Dragon Alchemy Radio was born. Because I realized something. I realized that I didn't need to separate the scientific from the spiritual, the grounded from the mystical, nor fitness and health from wellness. See, none of these systems were ever meant to be apart anyways. They're all systems of the whole that work synergistically to create your life. Wood Dragon Alchemy Radio became the space where I could bring all of me, the philosopher, the scientist, the mystic, the human who's still learning. And I could be whole and tell the whole story as it is. A place where we can explore taboo topics and sacred truths, quite literally side by side. And most importantly, at least for me, is having fun while doing it. And look, don't worry. I'm going to do my best to show everything from beginning to end. So, let's talk about burnout, breakdown, and the birth of something new. Because, renewal, rebirth, rebranding, right? They all sound beautiful when you say them out loud, right? Buzzwords. I mean, hell. They even look beautiful when you write them down. Well, if you have good handwriting. Kind of like a butterfly emerging from the cocoon, right? But what I've seen is no one really talks about this. They don't talk about how messy this process actually is and how destructive it can actually feel in the moment. For me, renewal came through burnout. The kind that sneaks up on you, even when you're doing everything right. You're eating well, you're exercising, you're producing, you're creating, you're doing all the aligned things, and yet, somehow, you still end up feeling empty inside. For me personally, it happened in many different areas of my life and throughout my life. In my work, my relationships, and even the things that used to light me up the most. I'd find myself pushing, striving, always doing the most, only to hit that wall hard, again and again. That is this it feeling, For me, it always manifested as a feeling like existential dread or even fear, even terror to some degree that I would never find my way or leave my mark. That voice inside that whispers, you are missing something. You are not worthy. And truth be told, I do what we all do at first. I fought like hell to repress it, to silence it with all of my might. I thought the answer came from more structure, more discipline, more optimization, more productivity. And ironically, it was all a lure that I had lulled myself into. See, I forced myself into routines. And for sure, it does work. For a while. But it also simultaneously, and this is what killed me, drained all the color out of everything for me. A feeling of insurmountable dread facing me down like a foe who could not be defeated. Eventually, I realized I'd been living in cycles of doing the most then crashing, over and over and over. Quite literally a continual pulse of living, dying, and repeating. Until the joy leaked out of all the things that I loved. Movement, food, creation, connection. See, I remember thinking to myself, This cannot be what it's supposed to feel like. This cannot be the point. That's when I started rethinking everything. Not from a place of punishment, nor perfection, but curiosity. See, then a few questions popped into my head. What would happen if I stopped forcing it? What would happen if I just stopped? What if I allowed renewal to come to me subtly, even softly, through nuance, through grace? So, I started paying attention to my own rhythms instead of my rules. I dropped my ego. Once again, I began asking myself, what truly feels sacred to me right now? Not what looks productive, not what sounds impressive, but what feels alive in my body. I took previous lessons and I integrated them for myself. It was that shift in my perspective that changed everything. Once again, not to say that it didn't take time or effort to evaluate and even reevaluate my mind and my journey over and over again. But it led to a clearer path, a clearer direction, allowing me to feel excitement and joy again. Especially in the things that I love and that bring me vitality. Things that would carry me on my way as I continue to walk the embodied path. Things that brought me life. See, I started exploring movement again, right? Not just lifting heavy or training for performance, but moving for energy, for joy, for excitement and expression. I'll be honest, I truly had to leave my ego at the door with this one. I wanted to rediscover the passion I felt when I first went to the gym, cooked my first meal, went to a class that I had loved, and read a book that was actually inspiring. And for anyone who knows me, knows that I spent a decade of my life in the gym training for competitive powerlifting. And to say simply, I was obsessed. Obsessed with absolute strength. Ironically, it's easy to see now that I used it as a means to an end, a means of protection. And to me, that means that it came from my ego. And once I let go and I surrendered to myself, to my body, I found myself drawn back to things like Tai Chi, Qigong, calisthenics, and even bodybuilding to a degree. More subtle movements that weren't about complete domination, but about harmony and balance. It's funny, in a way, that curiosity opened me up again. I began to find joy in the little things. How my body breathed, how my feet met the ground, how food could actually taste in my mouth when I wasn't rushing through it. See, for me, it was never about starting over again anyways. It was about remembering who I was underneath all the noise. All the opinions of all the groups that I had ever found myself in. Outside of all of the influence. See, renewal did not happen all at once for me. Instead, it happened slowly through layers of surrendering. When I think back, those periods of burnout, well, it's easy to feel like I was failing in the moment, and I can assure you, I was not failing. In fact, I was performing alchemy. Alchemy in action, in real time within my life. It was my raw material being tested, refined, and transmuted into something new. And it taught me that renewal does not require control, but in fact it requires trust. Trust and faith in the process, in the journey. That's the heartbeat of what I want to bring here. The real and authentic, the messy and the sacred process of transforming what is into what could be. For I truly believe, that there is an untapped potential within all of us, as we all are on our own sacred journeys of discovery, our own unique paths. So let's define alchemy and the art of transmutation. You've probably heard the word alchemy tossed around a lot by me specifically, and maybe even others these days. It's kind of becoming one of those mystical buzzwords that sounds powerful, but kind of feels just out of reach, you know? But when I use the word alchemy, I mean it in its simplest, its most human form. Transmutation, plain and simple. Taking what's raw and unrefined, what's dense, painful, unfinished even, and transforming it into something valuable, something usable, something unique to you. See, alchemy, to me, is the process of changing the ordinary into the extraordinary through awareness, through patience, and through intention. I believe we tend to think of alchemy as this ancient and esoteric art, right? Like people in cloaks or beakers bubbling with molten lead being turned into gold. But really, not to say that that isn't real, for someone it might be, but really, it is as ordinary as baking a loaf of bread or even frying up an egg. Right? You take some raw ingredients, flour, water, salt, and then through heat, pressure, and time, you get something completely new. Right? Think of coal being turned into a diamond. That, ladies and gentlemen, that is alchemy in its purest form. Or even, maybe we could toss out a more extreme example, like poison. Because when you stop to consider this, everything, even poison, can be medicinal in the right dosage. And the opposite of that exists as well. Because too much of anything, even if it's good for you, is poison. That's alchemy too. The shift from harm to healing is often just a matter of proportion and perspective. A matter of balance and harmony. You know, and the thing is, if you zoom out far enough, our whole human experience is like that, right? We take in pain, love, heartbreak, loss, success, failure, just to name a few things. And through time, reflection, and presence. We transmute it all into wisdom of lived and hopefully learned lessons. You might not be aware of it, but that is the work of the inner alchemist at play. Not escaping life, but learning how to work with it, how to ebb and flow in the currents of your life. To see that nothing, not even our darkest moments, our lowest lows, is a wasted moment or even wasted material. To me, alchemy is not about becoming someone new or even something new, right? It's about remembering how to work with what's already here, now. What you already have, and who you already are, in these moments, now. Your emotions, your patterns, your gifts, your limitations, all of it. Because here is the truth. You cannot transform what you refuse to touch. Plain and simple. And when we embrace that, life stops being something that happens to us. And it starts being something that happens through us. Let me say it another way. It's playing the hand of cards we've been dealt, with more poise, more ease, and more strategy. See, that, ladies and gentlemen, is the pulse of this show. Bringing alchemy back to every day. Not just as this mystical idea, but as a lived science of renewal, energy, and embodiment. We all have that alchemist within us. The part that can look at something painful or chaotic and just ask, what could this become? What could it become if I worked with it differently? And the moment you ask that question, the transformation process is already underway. So let's talk about the science with a little bit of a mystical weave. Renewal through the nervous system, breath, and energy. So, if alchemy is transformation and transmutation, then the nervous system is most definitely the crucible where that transformation and transmutation occurs. See, everything we experience, from stress, love, safety, burnout, to joy, success, right? Those all run through the intricate web of wiring within our bodies. And that system does not just respond to our environment. In fact, it creates our whole experience of it. So, when I hit burnout, I used to think the fix was mental, logical. Like I could just think my way into being calm or plan my way into peace. Strategize it. Right. The joke was on me, of course. Another lesson to be learned and integrated. But the truth is, your nervous system, see, it has to feel safe before your mind ever can. The body physically needs to feel safety so that the mind can perceive that safety. You cannot logic your way into regulation, okay? You can logically think about the steps to regulate the body, to feel safety and perceive that safety, but you cannot strategize it. You cannot think it. You must breathe your way there, or at least I like to use breath as a vehicle to achieve it. You know, I think that's where the bridge between science and mysticism really begins to show up. I mean, if we think about this, see, breath is the only system within the body that's both automatic and conscious. Let that sink in. Right? You can literally let breathing happen on its own accord. Or should you decide, you can take control of it. You can shape it. You can guide it. See, that's alchemy in motion. Every inhale brings in new possibilities, new life. And every exhale, that shit lets go of all the old stories, all the opinions. It is literally a rhythm of death and rebirth happening in your chest all day. See, when you use your breath intentionally, slowing it down, deepening it, anchoring it, you're signaling to your nervous system, to your body, that we are safe now. We can rest now. We can renew now. And the fascinating part is, at least to me anyways, science completely backs this up. When you breathe slower and deeper, the vagus nerve activates within the body, or gets stimulated, shifting you from fight and flight to rest and digest, from sympathetic to parasympathetic nervous system. See, and this has a physiological effect on the body. It lowers your heart rate. It stabilizes your blood pressure. It turns your immune system back on. To me, I believe it's physiological magic. Or, you know, as we can plainly call it, everyday alchemy. A lived alchemical experience. See, our ancestors, they already knew this, of course, right? From Taoist breathwork to yogic pranayama, every ancient tradition had some version of this wisdom long, long before neuroscience could even map it. See, they understood that breath is the rhythm of life, the tool through which we can harmonize with the greater pulse of existence. When we breathe consciously, we're not just oxygenating tissues, right? We are quite literally reprogramming the body's story. We're saying, I'm not in survival anymore. I'm in creation. And that is real renewal. When your body, your mind, and your spirit align in harmony, functioning together in that one moment of awareness. When the system that once held tension now holds space and peace. That's when you know the alchemy has landed. You can feel it. If you take one thing from this episode, please let it be this. Your breath is your most direct portal to renewal, to harmony, to balance. See, you don't have to force it. You don't have to fix it. Really, there's nothing to fix anyways. All you have to do is meet it, be present, with awareness, conscious of it. See, let it remind you that transformation doesn't just happen in the mind. It happens within the body. And your body, it knows the way home. So let's wrap this up with some closing reflections. You know, the more I sit with the idea of renewal, the more I realize that, and I'm sure others have come to this conclusion as well, this is not a one-time event in your life. It's not something that you just accomplish, that you just check off and then move past, right? In fact, renewal itself is cyclical in nature. It's a conversation that never really ends. A conversation between who you've been, who you are now, and who you're becoming. See, I believe we live in a culture obsessed with the idea of arrival. Almost as if transformation means you've finally figured it out. Woohoo! Or finally arrived at the finish line. Or you're finally going to be happy. But the truth is, real mastery lies in the willingness to keep beginning again and again and again. See, it's that fool energy. You're not scared to look foolish, especially if you ever wish to be a master at anything. Then you must be okay and accept the fact that you will look foolish the first time you do it. Hell, probably even the first 100 times you do it. And that is nothing to judge yourself about. It's part of the process. Trust it. Trust yourself. Trust that you will get better. That you are better. To meet yourself over and over and over again and again with curiosity instead of judgment, with grace and ease, right? That's renewal, that's alchemy, and that's what this show is about. See, I've said it before, but I think it's worth repeating. Knowledge alone is not power. Applied knowledge is. Hell yeah. Because you can read all the books, you can listen to all the podcasts, all the audiobooks, you can take all the notes, all the classes, you can go to all the seminars. But until you embody what you learn, until you breathe it into your cells and live it through your choices day in and day out, that knowledge just sits there, collecting dust. You're gatekeeping. Information becomes wisdom only when it moves through you. And that is what I hope each episode here helps you do. Take what resonates. Leave what doesn't. Integrate that shit and live it out in your own unique way. Because this show is not about me teaching at you. It's about us learning with each other. Exploring how science and spirituality structure and flow, body and soul can all coexist in a singular human experience. And like you, I don't know all the answers, nor do I pretend to have it all figured out. So, I want you to walk away from every episode feeling more empowered, more self-assured, and quite frankly, more you. Not fixed, not perfected, but ever present. Because the real magic happens when you stop trying to become and you start remembering that you already are. So, as you go back into your day, maybe take one conscious breath. Just one. Take the time to feel how it moves through you. The inhale, filling you with vitality. And the exhale, relieving you of tension and stress. The renewal happening in real time within you. That is all it takes to return to your center, to you, to home. This is just the beginning of Wood Dragon Alchemy Radio. And I'm genuinely honored that you're here at the start of it. Truly, I'm grateful. Co-creating this experience right now with me, no matter what time you view this. Exploring it, exploring what it means to live, to heal, and to evolve from the inside out. So, real quick, a quick teaser for episode 2. Energy is not just mystical, it's biological. I dive into the body's hidden codes, how movement, breath, and awareness regulate your nervous system and unlock vitality. This is the foundation of embodied alchemy. So, here's to renewal, here's to transformation, and to the ongoing art of remembering you are already gold. So until next time, stay grounded, stay curious, stay loving, and keep alchemizing. Peace be with you, my friends. Jake out.